This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work, responding to another Ask Prof Wolff question from our Patreon community. This question comes from Robert Hand, and he wants to know about worker co-ops and profits. He's been hearing and listening to some criticisms of worker co-ops that runs roughly like, if they're part of a market system, well, then they're dependent on profits. And whatever they do for their workers can only be done if the business is profitable and will not and cannot be done if it isn't. And therefore, it's not some kind of breaking out of the capitalist system, which is certainly what people like us argue it is. So let me try to respond to this criticism. Here we have to deal with the issue of profit. In our culture, a culture thoroughly overwhelmed by capitalism, we use the word profit and give it a kind of meaning that is almost theological. What do I mean? We are told, and indeed as a professor of economics, I was asked to teach the following idea all my life: that whatever is most profitable is therefore what ought to be done. In other words, profit is a magical index. If you're profitable, it means you're doing the right thing. And if you're not profitable, it means you aren't. Unprofitable businesses are not doing what we need and should disappear. Profitable businesses are doing what we need, should be applauded and celebrated. Profit, in other words, is like a god. I want you to question that, the way I would want you to question almost any theological proposition, and most good theologians would want you to do that too. Who knows where your questions and criticisms might lead, to what important insights, to what important changes might they take us. So let's do it. Is profit the kind of perfect signaling device that the defenders of capitalism want to say it is? And my answer is immediately a resounding no. Using profit in the way we teach it is a good way to keep capitalism going, because it moves money from the areas that are not bringing in a lot of profit to the areas that are. And for capitalists, that's good. They want their money to be maximally bringing them back more, because that's what they're in business for, to get more. You've probably noticed that we're a society in which getting more becomes, a fetish. It's a fetish in economics too, and we would best be rid of them. But let me drive the point home. We already in our society do all kinds of things that reject profit as the guide to do anything. I'll give you an example. I got my PhD at Yale University. Yale University is, as most Americans would agree, an important institution. It has raw materials, classrooms, books, computers, and it has hired workers, professors, teaching assistants, and it produces a product, education, which is purchased by the public, the students and families of students who are sent to Yale. It is a profit-making enterprise, but it often doesn't make a profit. There are years in which they say that they've done the calculations and they are not profitable. But no one in their right mind would have suggested to Yale that because it wasn't profitable in this year or that year or several years running, they should stop existing. And indeed, they didn't. They went out there and begged for money donations from their alumni and from foundations, and they got them. Nobody cared that they weren't all that profitable. There were other reasons for this institution to be preserved. And there's the clue. Other reasons, other standards for what we want. Most of our religious institutions aren't profitable. Most of our medical institutions aren't profitable in the sense of hospitals and so on. Or at least they weren't until they became taken over by capitalists who want to use the logic of profit, which is why, by the way, we don't have hospitals in many parts of the country where we need them, and where indeed there are movements of people trying to get hospitals to come back and discovering that the only way to do that is to use a standard of what we need that isn't linked to profit. Well, let me tell you as an economist, profits come from all kinds of sources. Doing what's profitable is only pandering to the mentality of the capitalist. What we want is a society that produces what we need. And what we need is not only signaled to us by profit, it's often signaled to us by the absence of profit. It wasn't profit that made those universities start in the first place. Yep, worker co-ops will be guided by many considerations other than profit, alongside of profit. One of the things that's interesting about an enterprise is whether it can be profitable or not. That'll make a difference. That's part of the story. But to make it the only part of the story, that's to give it a role that is fetishized, that denies all the richness and diversity of why we do anything. We shouldn't be slaves to one particular index, which just happens to be the one that rich people focus on and their never-ending quest to be richer still. This is Richard Wolff for Democracy at Work.